I'm mute myself. I know you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So this is the May meeting of the Youth and Education Committee. So the meeting is called to order. What time is it? 6:39 p.m. Next slide, Khalid, please. All right, just a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand for Zoom. The raise hand function is under the participants icon. And if you have any trouble, please use the chat icon to relay your difficulty to the staff. Next slide. Okay. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand for Zoom. Please keep your questions and comments pertaining to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand for Zoom and wait to be recognized. All right. Khalid, if you could take the roll call.
Will do. Give me 1 second. Okay, members, please keep in mind that there are 10 committee members. 6 are needed in order for there to be quorum. Rosa Diaz.
Present.
Thank you. Angela Donadell.
Present.
Thank you. David Giordano.
Present.
Thank you. John Green.
Here.
Thank you. Sage Mason.
Present.
Thank you. Claudia Perez.
Here.
Thank you. Excuse me. Asher Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Isaac Scott. Okay. Russell Schuler.
Present.
Thank you. And Jason, who has requested an excuse. You have quorum, chairs.
Okay. If the slides could go back up, then we could continue. Just everyone make sure you're on mute, please, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback from. So the agenda was sent out in advance, and also were the minutes. So does anyone have any, Does anyone have any remarks about the minutes for the agenda? If so, please raise your hand now. All right, seeing that no hands were risen, we can, the agenda and the minutes were adopted. So. All right, does anyone have any announcements that they want to make on the record? I know there was a few before we started recording. All right. Raul Soto?
Yes, just not member of the board, but VHGP. Just have a quick announcement. 2 different things. This past week, our East Harlem Tour Program CEO of 15 years, Jeff Ginsburg, has announced that he's going to be stepping down in the fall. So we wanted to kind of let the community know that this transition is happening into the organization, but also that our board intends to launch a new search process for our next CEO over the summer. And we hope that it'll be a very engaged process with the community. And the second thing is just that we have a health fair. We're calling it Health Barrio. That's happening on Friday from 1 to 5 at JREC 1573 Madison Avenue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you could put that in the chat, that would be helpful, just so people could like write it down. Any other announcements? All right, so I think we go to the next slide. All right, is Dr. Christie here? Maybe in the attendees? All right, so we're gonna circle back later and see if she gets on. Rosa?
Yes, thank you so much. I know we just came from a spelling bee right now, so maybe Dr. Christie should be there still. But that's what we just had today. Oh my goodness. We had first, second, and third championship students. They did amazing, and each of them was given a gift card by the East Harlem Community Partnership. Thank you so much to them. Also, tomorrow is our CEC District 4 meeting at 6 p.m. Please join us. The information was already sent out numerous times. Please share the information. District 4, we've been very busy actually going to several events. We're also partnering with the East Harlem community, the East Harlem tutorial program to do the Friday event. We're going to be there representing District 4. We also attended a combo event on April 23rd, which was for new parents, and especially to those parents that were very directly impacted by the pandemic. So we were there, represented District 4, and provided information as to what is a community education council, what are we parent leaders, and we gave a lot of resources. We gave out toys that the East Harlem Community Partnership provided to us. We provided information on upcoming events in our district. We also have a weekly meeting that is called Ambassadors. Is families becoming leaders and teaching them how to support their own children as, like an early intervention a model, and that's on a weekly basis at 12 p.m. on Tuesdays. And we also have family hours, which I believe is Thursdays at 12 p.m. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I'll be more than willing to send you the flyer. I know our amazing family leadership coordinator and our amazing family parent coordinators. They've been sending all this information on a weekly basis. And this is basically to promote curious thinking, problem solving, thriving independently, empathy building. And this takes place, again, every single Tuesday at 12 p.m. We've also partnered with the East Harlem Community Partnership on a April 23rd event that was for Muslim holiday Eid Mubarak, and it was a family celebration and resource fair. We also provided, again, toys, information, gift cards, clothing. So it was a big event. Let me see, what else? And please join tomorrow's Community Education Council. We're gonna have a dyslexia literacy academy coming to present. And this is just to inform everyone and educate parents on what it is, what is dyslexia, how can I identify that in my children, how can I, as a parent leader, support other students, other parents, or other schools, and I think that's it, but I don't know if that's it because I have so many. Maybe I'm forgetting something. But hopefully Dr. Christie can make it. If not, I hope I said it all. Thank you.
Forgot I was on mute. All right, thank you, Rosa. A lot of stuff happening. Is anyone here from CEC 5? All right. All right, District Attorney's Office. I saw Imani.
Good evening, everyone. I am here. I don't have many announcements this week or this month, but I do just want to say that it was a pleasure meeting with Rosa this afternoon. We had an Arrested Dispo presentation at PS 171, and we had one of our assistant district attorneys come and explain the overview of our criminal justice process and how we work to promote public safety in Harlem. So if any of you are interested, we do offer free presentations, and you can contact me directly to schedule those for your community groups.
All right, thank you. Like I said before to other people, if you could put it in the chat, that's helpful. Just was more helpful for me when I'm like taking notes. Rosa?
Yes, thank you so much. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Today we had a discussion with District Attorney's Assistant Reginald Green, and I totally forgot because I just go to events, everything to inform our families about public safety in our schools. And yes, definitely we're gonna do basically like a citywide event where everyone can come outside and just join these public meetings. Thank you so much, Imani. You were amazing today. Thank you to Attorney Reginald. He was incredibly patient with all these questions, and thank you so much for coming in and informing our families too.
Anytime, Rosa. Thanks.
All right. Working together. Very nice. Is Dr. Chrissy on now by any chance? All right, I don't see her, so maybe if she pops on later, she could give a quick update. So next slide. All right, so we have a presentation from Chris Cirillo, Ascendant Neighborhood Development. So take it away.
Great, thank you, Asher. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Cirillo. I am the Executive Director of Ascendant Neighborhood Development Corporation. We are a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in East Harlem on East 116th Street. I'm here to give an informational presentation this evening about our Share NYC project, which is currently going through the ULURP process. You may have heard the presentation that we and HPD gave at the full board meeting. And we've also been presenting the project to a number of committees this month. We've already been to the Housing Committee last week, Human Services last night, Youth and Education this evening. We'll be back before the Land Use, Landmarks and Planning Committee tomorrow evening, and Economic Development and Culture next week, before returning to the full board later this month when the board's recommendations regarding the ULURP are considered. So if I can share screen, I'll pull up our slides. This will probably be familiar for a number of you. Some of this is information that we've shared at the full board meeting and in prior presentations to the Land Use, Landmarks and Planning Committee. And we had previously presented the project to the Youth and Education Committee actually almost 2 years ago, in June of 2021. So a lot of this will be a recap, and I will go quickly so as to not take too much of your evening. If you can, I can't share with the other slides up, so okay, great, thanks. Okay, so the proposed project is a new supportive housing project that we are proposing to develop on a site that Ascendant owns on East 106th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. The address is 244 East 106th Street. For this project, Ascendant has partnered with the Ali Forney Center, which is the largest nonprofit organization in the country that provides services to LGBTQ+ youth. So I will just, through these slides really quickly, I think most people are pretty familiar with Ascendant. We currently have just about 700 apartments in our existing portfolio. We have another 600 or so apartments, new construction, in 4 projects that are in development, all of which either have gone through ULURP or will be going through ULURP with Community Board 11. And we are a partner on 2 different teams that are working on 2 large NYCHA pact projects that encompass several developments in East Harlem as well. Just an overview of the sites, both existing portfolio buildings and proposed and future development sites around the neighborhood. A little bit more about the Ali Forney Center. Many of you may already be familiar with it. Their mission is to protect LGBTQ youth from the harms of homelessness and empower them and give them the tools they need to live independently. And this has been their mission since their founding. They have currently a drop-in center in Central Harlem. They operate transitional housing, and the project that they are co-developing with us on 106th Street will be one of the first permanent supportive housing projects that they have worked on. Just a little bit more about Ali Forney and the clientele that they serve. And then I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. Again, a lot of this will probably be recap, and I think most of you have heard about the project previously, but we're in the ULURP process now. We were certified in late March, and the proposed project is a 10-story new construction project on a vacant lot owned by Ascendant that's highlighted in the map on the screen. The new project will have 32 affordable rooming units, and I'll talk a little bit more later about the shared housing concept and why we are proposing what we're proposing to develop here. The building will also have 1 additional unit for a total of 33 units, and that 1 additional unit is for the building manager that will be living in the building. The project will be financed under the Department of Housing Preservation and Development Supportive Housing Loan Program. And the ULURP actions for which HPD is actually the applicant on behalf of Ascendant and Ali Forney is the acquisition of previously city-owned land and the disposition of that land back to Ascendant for the development of the project. And so just really briefly to explain that, the vacant lot where we're proposing to build this new building was previously disposed to Ascendant when the adjacent building and 2 other nearby buildings were sold to us back in the mid-1990s. We rehabilitated those 3 buildings at that time and have continued to operate them as affordable rental housing since then for the last almost 30 years now. And the lot was sold because at the time HPD did not have a new construction program to really do anything on the lot. And so the decision was made to dispose of it to Ascendant. It has been a fenced, sort of somewhat landscaped vacant lot since then. It's not accessible to the community as any type of garden, and it's not accessible to the residents of our adjacent building at 242 East 106th Street. So there really hasn't been any use of the site all during that time. So we had been looking at development options for the site, which was upzoned under the East Harlem rezoning. And while we were looking at the development opportunities, in 2018, HPD issued their Share NYC RFEI, Request for Expressions of Interest, looking for proposals from development teams that had a site and a concept to develop a new type of shared housing. And so in shared housing, residents have their own private bedrooms or private living spaces, but they share kitchens and or bathrooms with other residents. So unlike typical supportive housing developed under HPD's supportive housing loan program, where each individual resident may have their own studio apartment with their own kitchen and bathroom, for our proposal, we proposed shared supportive housing specifically targeted to young people ages 16 to 24, and with a particular focus on serving the needs of LGBTQ youth and building on the strengths that the Ali Forney Center has in providing services for that population. So the RFEI was issued in 2018, responses were due in 2019, and 3 teams were selected to develop their proposals on the sites that they had proposed, our team being one of those. And those designations were announced in late 2019. Obviously, as everybody knows, the pandemic hit in early 2020. And so it has taken us a while to get through the pipeline and through the process, but we are happily now in ULURP and moving forward. So where we are in the process, we're hoping to complete ULURP by early fall of this year. That will allow us to apply to HPD for low-income housing tax credits, which are part of the funding structure for this project. That next application round will be in spring of 2024. And assuming that our project receives an allocation, it's a competitive process, so we aren't guaranteed, but we're optimistic that we'll be funded in that round. And if we are, that will set us up to close on the construction financing and start construction sometime in the second half of 2024, with an 18 to 24 month construction timeline that would put the opening of the building sometime in 2026. So brief overview of the project again, 10 stories. The building is divided up into a set of 4 duplex shared housing units. And within each of those 4 units, there are 8 rooming units. And so that's how we get to the total of 32 rooming units in the overall building. So in each of those duplexes, there's a shared living space, a shared kitchen, 4 shared bathrooms, and the 8 individual rooming units that will be leased to individual residents of the building. The building is fully ADA accessible, obviously new construction, elevator, all spaces in the building will be fully accessible. The second floor of the building will contain office space for the Ali Forney staff, who will be on site providing services 24/7 to residents in the building. The other part of the second floor is the 1 apartment for the live-in building manager. So as a supportive housing project, 100% of the units are affordable at 60% of AMI or below. We have not selected our contractor for the project yet, but as with all HPD funded projects, we will be meeting all requirements and hoping to exceed all requirements in terms of local hiring and contracting with MWBE firms. A quick overview of the site so that you can see it sort of from the air. This is looking at the site, which is on the south side of 106th Street, across from Franklin Plaza, just west of 2nd Avenue. And also of note, this is a location where one of the subway stations will be for phase 2 of 2nd Avenue subway. More views of the site, looking across 106th Street on the left toward the site, highlighted in orange. The site is 27 feet wide and 100 feet deep, and the building just to the right of it with the light cream colored cornice is our existing building, 242 East 106th Street. And then the view on the right is looking southwest across 2nd Avenue. Really quickly, this slide just shows kind of the evolution of the design of the project, initially looking at it as a traditional HPD supportive housing loan project. On the left with individual studios for every resident with individual kitchens, bathrooms. In the middle, looking at it as micro units. And then on the right, showing you the 2 floors and the 2 floor plans for the duplex apartments, and the concept of sort of the shared space, shared bathroom space, shared laundry, shared large kitchen space and living space, as well as some workstations for residents to be able to do schoolwork or other work. The remainder of the floor plans for the building, we do have a partial cellar. The site, as are many sites in East Harlem, is in a flood zone. So part of the ground floor, the first floor, is taken up by mechanical space that can't be in the basement due to flooding concerns. So the building will be built to meet all of the current resiliency guidelines for future flood level and potential flooding concerns. So the ground floor will have the main reception area up front. The middle part of the ground floor has those mechanical spaces, and at the rear of the ground floor, at the south end of the building, is a multi-purpose room for residents to use that can be configured in multiple different ways. And that room has access to a landscaped rear yard space, again, providing additional amenity for residents of the building. Oh, sorry, and then the second floor over on the right, that just shows the detail of the office space for the Ali Forney staff and the building manager's apartment. This is on my screen showing up a little blurry. I apologize if it's showing up blurry on yours as well. But this is just a larger view of the duplex units, showing a little bit more detail of the space. Just a view of the north facade of the building facing onto 106th Street, and some detail on the right, showing sort of a section of the building and how it's built to be above the flood elevation. And then I'll just quickly run through some interior renderings of the lobby, the multi-purpose space, the Ali Forney Center office space, some views inside the shared duplex apartments, showing the living space, more of the living space, workstations upstairs on the second floor of the duplex, common kitchen area for residents in the shared unit, view inside one of the individual rooming units. So again, individual residents will have their own individual rooming unit, and that they'll have their lease for that, which will cover that space. Those will be private furnished rooms for them. A view of the rear yard courtyard space. And then just a note about sort of the temporary art installation that we have at the site that was developed in conjunction with another nonprofit, Groundswell, and a professional artist who worked with current Ali Forney Center clients to develop the concept, the imagery, and the text that's on all the panels to help beautify the site for a couple of years until we finally are able to start construction. And with that, that's the end of the slides, and I am on the screen.
All right, thank
Great.
you so
Sorry
much.
about
Does anyone have any questions for Chris? By the way, is there anyone on the call from Ali Forney Center?
Unfortunately, no one was able to attend tonight. Tonight is their regular board meeting, and so no one from Ali Forney was able to attend, but we're more than happy to come back in the future with Ali Forney staff and team members to answer any follow-up questions.
All right. Do you know if they'll be there for the full board meeting?
I believe so, and we're going to double check that to make sure.
All right. All right. So does anyone have any questions for Chris about the building? Rosa.
Yes, thank you so much. When is this expected to start and finish?
I'm sorry, I was coughing. I apologize. When is it expected to start? I missed the last word.
Yes, no worries.
When is it expected to start construction?
Yeah,
Right,
and finish.
and to finish, yes, thank you.
And finish, yes. Well, so we're hoping to complete ULURP. Now that we're in ULURP, we have to complete ULURP by late summer or early fall, depending on how long every step of that takes. But by September or October, we'll be done with ULURP. And then once we're done with ULURP and we have our land use approvals, then we can apply to the next funding round for low-income housing tax credits. So the funding sources for the project are HPD Supportive Housing Loan Program, which is a subsidy program, paired with low-income housing tax credits. And HPD has one annual application cycle where different developers can apply, and it's a competitive process. There's usually more projects than there are credits. We're hopeful that this project, because it came out of an HPD initiative for shared housing, will score well. So we'll be applying next spring when that next application round happens, and then we'll hear whether or not we've gotten those tax credits by early summer of next year. And assuming that we are funded by early next summer, then that would position us to be able to start construction by the end of 2024, or in the fall or early winter of 2024. And then it's a relatively small building, but it is sort of a complicated little site. So we are anticipating about 18 to 24 months for the construction period. So if we start by late 2024, that would put us sometime in mid to late 2026, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head, for completing the building and being able to occupy it.
Rosa, do you have another question, or is that an old hand?
Yeah, thank you so much. I do have like a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Sure.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. What is like the income requirement?
Yeah, so because it's funded with low-income housing tax credits, the maximum AMI for the project is 60%. So that's just built into the low-income housing tax credit program for all low-income housing tax credit projects. But it's supportive housing, and so it will be serving people at a range of incomes depending on what their income is. Obviously, the project will be serving young people ages 16 to 24. So it might be people who have very little income. So they'll have rental assistance to cover, their portion of the rent if they don't have income from a job. So, we expect that the actual AMIs, the actual income levels of folks will be fairly low, but it will be sort of case by case based on the individuals who end up leasing the rooming units within the building.
Rosa, do you have another one? Or...
My last question, I promise.
No, it's
That's okay.
There...
I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned kids from like 16 years old all the way to 24 years old, I believe.
16 to 24, yes.
Right. So is there any priority to those children? For me, they're children still,
That's just, the clientele that Ali Forney serves and that are typically served in kind of supportive housing projects that are, serving young people, the various funding programs and, referrals are for young people, between those ages. Because it's permanent supportive housing, I should note, people don't get kicked out just because they turn 25. So, everybody who moves into the building will have a lease. It's not transitional housing. It's not people coming in for, a set period of time and then needing to move on and move out. So it is permanent supportive housing. So people will need to qualify within that age band when they first move in, but they can stay in the housing past age 24. Our belief is that over time they will, their lives will be stable. They will, have the assistance and services that Ali Forney and their partners, provide in terms of helping people to complete their education or continue their education, to get job training and assistance with finding jobs, health and mental health services to help, stabilize their lives and be able to live independently. And so, the anticipation is that, eventually people will want to move out into a more traditional apartment setting. But it's sort of a new, model. So, we don't know exactly how it's going to work out and how long people will ultimately end up staying. But, it is a shared housing situation. And I think, as people age in place, they will probably want to move out and get their own apartments or move into different situations once they get past 24.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, I'm just...
Ash, very quickly as I'm logging onto the screen is also, Chris, thank you for coming. I remember when you came 2 years ago, I am the chair, sorry. I'm not visible at the moment, but I'm trying to get there. Really want to just congratulate you with the project and moving forward. Just following up to Rosa's kind of question. So when, young people not age out, but make that decision, would there be help in getting them at that time if they need additional supported housing, or, would they work with the young individual to help secure that,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both Ascendant as a housing provider and Aliforne as a housing provider and service provider, our mission is that, the project is going to serve people who are coming into it from very unstable housing situations, from homelessness, from housing instability, from sort of family, rejection and abandonment, people who really need a supportive environment to be able to stabilize their lives, to be able to grow and kind of make that transition from, teenager to young adult. And obviously it's several years out before the project is going to be built and occupied and people might be aging out. But, our commitment is that, once people move in, we want to help them make a transition when they're ready to move out. Whether that's apartments that may be available within Ascendant's portfolio or elsewhere in the neighborhood, or other assistance that we can provide or that Aliforne can provide. But that would absolutely be part of it. There would, we wouldn't want people to feel like they moved out and then didn't still have support. They have made it through this process of stabilizing their lives, completing their education, finding a job, dealing with whatever issues they might be dealing with. The goal is that this is really a stepping stone to independent living, and we want to be there for that step to whatever that next sort of transition is for them. So, we haven't worked out all the details of what that's going to look like. We've just been trying to get the project built, but it's definitely part of the ongoing conversations that we have with the Aliforne Center about, what does it look like for them right now with clients that they have in their transitional housing, and what assistance they provide, and what might that look like in this situation where it's really a more permanent supportive housing project, and people might be staying longer, and might be at kind of a more, a different phase of kind of their housing journey. So yeah, but great question, and it's definitely something that we're thinking about.
All right. I have a quick question, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you that you can answer, or if it's more for the LA Foreigner people. Also, I do remember you presenting 2 years ago, so I appreciate you like staying on top of it. And yeah,
You're all probably getting tired of seeing me.
I don't. I personally, I could speak for myself. I don't mind it. What is it? Is because you're gonna be housing people under 18. Is there like a foster care type situation going on in there?
That's a good question, and I honestly would have to defer that answer. I will bring that back and ask Aliforne what it looks like for different ranges of ages within 16 to 24, because obviously people are at very different stages of life, from 16 to 24. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll bring that back and we will get back to you with that.
Does anyone else have any questions before we move on? Yeah. And you said you're coming to full board, so I guess if people don't have questions now, probably have time to think about it before full board in 2 weeks.
Yes, we'll be at Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning tomorrow evening as they consider drafting the community board's recommendations. We'll be at Economic Development and Culture next Tuesday. And then we'll be at the full board later in the month, which is the last full board before the board has to vote. So the board will be voting on the recommendations, draft recommendations from the Land Use, Landmarks, and Planning Committee. So we'll be at all of those and able to answer any additional questions anybody has. And obviously, we're at the community board a lot for a lot of different projects. So we're always happy to come back. And, as we get through ULURP and as we secure funding and as we get closer to construction and working through a lot more of these questions and issues, we're happy to come back anytime you want us to provide updates, and hopefully get a maybe a more regular cycle of not coming and doing a full presentation, once a year, but more just informational updates monthly or on whatever frequency makes sense.
All right. Seeing that there's no more questions, thank you so much, Chris, for your presentation.
Thanks a lot.
All right. So I think we can move on to the next agenda item.
May I make a request?
Yep. David, do
Yeah.
you need a minute or are you good?
Yes. Please,
Alright.
can we do the new business? You have Polaris here. And then
Uh,
we'll focus on-
Yeah, I saw Caleris.
So, why don't you take it off, Ash, and then we'll turn it over to Claris. I'm biting a little meatball real quick because I'm starving.
The new business or the old business?
We'll do the new business first as it
Okay.
relates to the transfer of the schools and have a discussion on that.
It's all right. I was eating 5 minutes ago. All right, Caleris. The reciting of the Young Women's Leadership Academy of East Harlem with Edward A. Reynolds, West Side High School. So,
Hi, everybody. It's good to hold space with you. I haven't been here in a little bit. It's been busy out in these streets. So last Monday, May 1st, the panel for educational policy approved the reciting of Edward A. Reynolds West Side High School, which is located on 102nd and Amsterdam, into the building of Young Women's Leadership of East Harlem, which is located on 106th and Park. That building is a commercial building of which the Department of Education leases 5 floors of that building in order for that school to be there. The school has been, Young Women's Leadership, or TWILS, has been in that building for a little over 20 years. And the Edward A. Reynolds High School, Westside High School, is a transfer school that has been at its location for 30 years. However, the school has existed for 50 years. There was significant opposition to this particular reciting, mostly because the students at Edward A. Reynolds, which is a total of about 250 students, would be losing some important resources that are in the building. So Edward A. Reynolds, as I mentioned, is a transfer school. So students from the ages of 16 to 21 that have to complete credits in order to graduate high school are the ones that attend this school. And so they're not really, when you ask them, like, what grade are you in? They don't really know. They just know how many credits they've completed and how many they have to complete in order to graduate. Inside that building, there's also a life center, which life centers are supported within District 79. These centers are meant to provide childcare for any student that's within the public education system. And so there were 7 students that were supported. Their children were being supported at the life center inside the building. So teen moms and dads could take their kids to school with them while they took classes. Their kids were also being supported with early childhood education. In addition, in the building, there's a Ryan Health Clinic. The main site for Ryan Health is actually on 97th Street, and they have a couple of clinics in that area. There's a Ryan Health Clinic where 100% of the students in the building receive their primary care. So anything from birth control to physicals to vaccinations, all of the students that attend Westside High School were receiving health care there. Important because they have a very strong athletics program, which actually keeps the kids in the school. In order for the kids to participate, they have to have their physical done, they have to have their vaccinations done. And so it was aligned, the athletics program was aligned with the Ryan Health Clinic that would also help support nutrition and fitness for the students, which also kept the kids inside of the school. I should also note that the school doesn't have any metal detectors, doesn't really have a strong police presence, even though they're right across the street from Frederick Douglass houses. And as I mentioned, it's roughly around 250 to 260 students, with fluctuates throughout the year. The reason for that is because as students complete their credits, they can graduate at different times of the year. And so the school is really mindful of that. And so you see that both attendance and enrollment kind of fluctuates throughout the year. That building, according to the Department of Education, can hold roughly 600 to 700 students. There needs to be some remodeling of the first floor and the third floor because they don't have classrooms, but they can hold about 600 students. And the reason why this resiting was proposed was because TWILS in those 5 floors hold 461 students. Now, TWILS requested that the Department of Education ask for one more floor. They didn't really want to leave that commercial building. They just needed more space. One of the things that TWILS wanted was to add another classroom to the for each middle school grade so that they would have the same number of middle school students coming into their high school. As of right now, they only have 2 classrooms per middle school grade, or 2 classes, I should say, not classrooms, 2 classes. And then in high school, they admit another class, like another cohort in addition to who they have. Their model is very much like you come in 6th grade and you stay from 6 through 12. And so they wanted to grow their middle school. The Department of Education requested another floor. The landlord did not have that space to give to them. And so then the Department of Education had to look for other sites. And this is a conversation that's been going on for about 5 to 6 years. There was a location identified in District 5. However, it was a co-location. And so in turn, they wouldn't be able to grow as much as they wanted to grow. And so they declined that option. Westside High School was then identified as a school that the building was underutilized. And so in turn, that's where we landed. Schools were notified of the resiting on January 31st. So in turn, their significant engagement occurred. Now, I will say I spoke to a lot of our East Harlem TWILS families, and they had one meeting where they were just told they were going to get this building and everything was great. And so they didn't have a lot of details. I will say that at first I thought that having a transfer school in our community, particularly in that site, would be useful. And so I had a lot of conversations with community right holders. Rosa, as president of the CEC, engaged the community as well. And it wasn't until about a month and a half into those conversations where a lot of things started coming up about unintended consequences that could occur as a result of the resiting. And while we totally want to support TWILS getting a different space for them to grow, we also understand that the population that is served at Westside High School is a high needs population, not just because they've had significant obstacles in their lives, but also because some of the trajectory of their lives have been difficult due to all of the different social factors that can impact your success as a young person. And so we do have kids at Westside High School that are in gangs, and that very openly spoke about how their life could be impacted by moving to the East Side, and that they don't feel safe. We started hearing more and more from community members, from parents whose children were stabbed, whose children were a victim of gun violence, whose children were jumped just based on where they lived. Most of the kids also that attend Westside High School are from the West Side, and so coming to the East Side would also increase their obstacles in terms of getting to school, which was a big thing. And so about a month before the vote, there was a lot of movement. There was opposition from almost every single elected official from Uptown, including our City Councilwoman Diana Ayala, Gail Brewer, Sean Abreu, Mark Levine, Senator Cordell Clear, Senator Robert Jackson, and citywide from Brad Lander and Jamani Williams. We identified another school building that could be good for Twills, which is Harlem Hebrew, which is actually located in District 3. It's on 118th and St. Nicholas. The building is 10 years old. During the pandemic, it was actually remodeled. It holds 800, can hold 800 students. It has a gym, it has a rooftop, it has a music room, it has a dance studio. Twills was actually willing to wait a year for the building to be brought up to code. According to Councilwoman Gail Brewer, the building needs about $200,000 of investments in terms of the HVAC system and air conditioners, but other than that, there shouldn't be any other issues. And so we thought that with this building as an option, and by engaging Twills, or better yet, more clearly, the Student Leadership Network, which supports Twills, that they would agree to this. However, the Department of Education said that that was not feasible because they feel like it could take up to 2 years to be able to prepare the building. And that was not something that was feasible for the Student Leadership Network. So the vote passed with 12 votes, which were yeses. There were 11 mayoral appointees that voted in favor of the vote, and then Staten Island, for some reason, did not align with the rest of the borough president appointees. And so they got the 12 votes in order to approve the reciting. The one thing I will add is that there are some concerns that there's a conflict of interest here. The Young Women's Leadership Network, or the Student Leadership Network, is actually funded by Ann Tisch from the Tisch family, which many of you know owns movie theaters, owns half of the Giants. Yes. And Andrew Tisch, Ann Tisch's husband, is the president of the Police Foundation. And so we understand that there are, and in addition to that, their network has donated over $1 million to Eagle Academy, which is where David Banks comes from. That's what he founded. So there are some legal concerns as of right now that the school is exploring in order for there to be an injunction to halt this reciting. Gail Brewer is actively involved in this. I will say Diana is also supportive of anything that the school has to do, in addition to meeting with them and welcoming them and making sure that we provide them with everything that we need. Of course, our superintendent is supportive and wants to do what's best for our kids. It's complicated. So I think it's something that we'll have to pay attention to. If they do come to the east side, I'm hopeful that they don't see a significant reduction in enrollment. I was told by students themselves, in addition to the staff at West Side, that they would lose at least half of their student body because they will not come to the east side because of safety concerns. And then we'll have to watch out for those safety concerns, unfortunately. And so it's a broader conversation as to how we can support these students. So we'll see what happens. Well, oh, I should also say 43% of the families that attend Twills are from East Harlem. And so that will also, that will also impact how our families are served. There's going to be a lot of families, particularly the middle school families, were like, I'm not, that's not an option for me. I have other kids in other schools in East Harlem. Now my daughter, who I don't want to send cross town on her own, I will have a commute. And so in turn, that's why we were advocating for the Harlem Hebrew building, which is closer to East Harlem and much more accessible to our East Harlem families. We suspect that the move to the Upper West Side is because they want to support more Upper West Side families, which have more access than our East Harlem families. And so there's some predictions and some concerns from, for example, CEC3 members and my counterpart, Naveed Hassan, which is the PEP member that is elected by CEC presidents in Manhattan, that believes that because Twills is a screened school, it will be the only screened middle school in the Upper West Side. And so in turn, more white families will feel attracted to that school versus their local public schools. And so that in turn is a concern in terms of the families that are served by TWILS. So I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Caleris, for a very in-depth presentation. I'll just say very quickly, I too felt a lot of the concerns that were mentioned. I have, in passing, spoken to quite a few of the young ladies that attend the Young Women's Leadership. And I was surprised that they're very surprised or happy to make the move. They're looking at some of the newer things. I do know Westside High. I grew up around the Frederick Douglass Community Center, attended programs there with Children's Aid, watched Westside High get built from containers. You know, those are those big containers that they built. And I was like, I don't know about going in that school when they were building it. You know, how safe is it? But it's now been here for many years. It's had a great impact in the community. And I guess the position I'm looking at it taking is that at this time, the move is happening. The transfer is happening. And how do we welcome, right, Edward A. Reynolds into the neighborhood of East Harlem? And we want them to feel welcome with all the concerns that we do have about switching schools for kids and coming to different communities. We know how challenging our community can be to young people. And I want to reach out and invite the principal to a committee meeting and work with them over the summer to foster this integration into our community and transition and support young women's leadership to the West Side as well. And so that's why I asked Caleris to come and do the in-depth presentation of this move and how it's affecting us. And I have mixed feelings. I probably have a little less feeling of losing something when I see young people talking and excited about what they're going to obtain. And I want those young people that are going to come to East Harlem to feel as welcomed and also supportive as much as we can. Unfortunately, the East Harlem Center for Children's Aid won't be built quick enough to help begin some of that, because the idea is to work with more adolescent youth during both the day and afternoon and evenings and help with transitioning them to adulthood. So any questions, please? I see Ash, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ash. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, this is just a question, and I'm also with David. I have a couple of like mixed feelings about this, because I think on both sides, I don't know. I'm not here really to state my opinion, but my question is if there's these concerns about safety, is it possible that or transportation, is it possible some of them could get busing to come to the east side? Or I don't know how that works. Or is there going to be any like increase in security so that way the kids do feel safe?
So the Department of Education has committed to creating different paths, right, where they would monitor more and be safe. Right now, the TWILS building only has one SSA. And so in turn, they are requesting a second SSA. This community is not used to having a strong police presence. And I actually, a lot of these young people, some of the young people that attend the school are post-incarcerated. So the relationship with NYPD is really complicated. And bringing in more NYPD into the space would probably not be one of the ways that they would feel safer. They would actually be like, oh, all these cops? Yeah, I'm not going to school. So that's going to be like a tricky way, a tricky thing we need to navigate. So there is an additional SSA. The other thing that I will say is that the security cameras in the TWILS building are not sufficient for monitoring the students. And it is so easy to just like walk down those stairs and bounce, which was another concern for the West Side family because, and I say family because that's how they treat each other, but you know, they're in that building, they have the gym, they have a workout room. There are so many different places where that could attract kids that need a break. The other concern is that the hallways in that building are really narrow. And so again, we might not think about this in our schools, but some of our, yes, David is talking about it. You got a kid that's got beef with another kid. You walk past them, they bump off
Actually,
each other,
all hell breaks loose.
and something can go down in the very narrow hallway. The other thing is that the ceilings are really low and, you know, different from serving 11-year-old girls. You have some 20-year-old dudes that are 6 feet tall. And I can already see them being like dunking to go into classrooms. You know, like there are all of that physical space stuff that we typically don't think about are definitely issues that we're going to see in this building. And how we navigate that is going to be tricky. We'll also have, again, young parents that won't have access to a life center in the building. And so there are going to be some young parents that are going to make different decisions on whether they're going to attend the school. And we still have to make arrangements. So they were offered to use the Jackie Robinson Educational Complex, their basketball court and their soccer court, which is just a block away. But East Harlem Pride uses that those facilities. And so you have schools like Park East, like Harvest Collegiate. There's tons of high schools that are using that space. So it's also going to be really tricky for them to have access to those spaces where they, again, had a very robust athletics team, actually won the men's championship last year. So all of these things are really affecting them. But like Dr. De La Cruz said, John Sullivan, who is the superintendent for transfer schools, used to be a District 4 principal, so he knows the neighborhood really, really well. And there are lots of different conversations on what this is going to look like. And there's also going to be a conversation of like, how many of these kids do we need to get them a new home? But I think it's all hands on deck if the move happens. I think we're all ready to receive them with open arms. I've been there quite a bit. I know at this point, I know a good chunk of the students and they know me, as well as staff. And they know that we're going to take care of them in East Harlem. I can tell you that message is resounding amongst their community. And I will also say that their communication to the Twills community was like, we're not against you. You know, 100 people spoke at the panel for educational policy and said, we are not against you. You deserve the space. The Department of Education should have found you the right space. These students and these teachers are feeling displaced. And so while the girls at Twills are super excited about getting new space, which is what they should have gotten, the children or the students, I shouldn't say children, but the students at West Side feel that one more time in their lives, people don't care about them. And one more time in their lives, they're seen as second class. And one more time in their lives, other people have access to resources and they get resources taken away. So I think that it's a little hard to really celebrate that Twills is going to get this new building at the expense of other young people.
Yeah, I agree with you. You said that there was like a health clinic in the West Side building?
Yes,
So-
the Ryan Health Center.
Yeah.
My
Two
mother
questions.
worked there for 20 years.
2 questions. Was it? Now I lost my train of thought. Is the Young Women's Leadership girls, are they gonna get access to that health clinic?
They will have access to the health clinic, and the students from West Side can still go to the health clinic.
Okay, yeah, that was gonna
if
be
they
my
want
next
to.
question.
In
Yeah.
addition to, there have been conversations with the adolescent clinic at Sinai.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
And so they will have they will have access to that as well. Again, but you know, they lift the concern of like, I could just go down one floor and be at the clinic. Now I have to make an appointment. I have to figure out where my schedule is going to be. And now if I have to go to work, I have to either walk 10 blocks north or go cross town to get my health care. So yeah, I mean, there are some options on the table. It's just not going to be easy.
One more question, David, if I may.
No, you're running it.
For the young parents, is there gonna be like maybe like a partnership with a daycare in the area, maybe like that's being explored? Because there's quite a few daycares within walking distance.
So they would go, so if they go to the daycares, they actually have to pay for that service or have a voucher. So they will have access to other life centers. So they can either keep their child at the life center at Westside and come cross town. Or there is a life center at the Renaissance Building, which is on 128th, more central Harlem, that they can take their kids there, or they can have a life center that's closer to their home. And so they can drop them off there. But like Alyssa Cartagena would always tell us, she's like, it's great to have the life center in my building because at the life center, they can't administer medicine to our kids. And so she chose to go to West Side because she would have her kid right there. And if the kid needed
Could be a good
medicine, if the kid needed to be nursed, if the kid needed, access to mom, they would be in the same building. And so she had actually considered waiting until her baby was a toddler to go back to school. And because she had a school like West Side where the life center was there, she came back to school and will be finishing this year and going to BMCC. So, these were all things that we lifted with the Department of Education, but we weren't able to save West Side.
Thank you. And Dr. Christie, I hope we can also work together with Ms. Superintendent Sullivan to also help with that transition collaboratively. So I know Rosa also mentioned, so we got a good, strong groups just within ourselves and also making sure that we can open up that channel to Mount Sinai Teen Adolescent Clinic, which does serve many of our communities. Rosa has a hand up.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Kaliris, for saying all of that. That was very detailed, and it was very sad actually. Hearing from all the students once again, because we've been having conversations all February, March, April, but I feel like our kids were not heard, right? So I did have a chance to speak to Superintendent Sullivan, and before the move was passed, right? Before this was passed May 1st, I told him that if this move actually passed, then he will have everyone in District 4 supporting them, that from the district, from the Community Education Council District 4, every parent and every CVO that I support and help, that we will support the school 1,000% in whatever it is that their needs may be, which we know it's a lot. It's a lot of the needs. And these are kids. For me, they're kids because they're so young. You know what I mean? They're not like 30s or 40s that they might have decisions and they already know what they want and everything. These are kids that we have to help. We have to support them. And I feel like after all these discussions that we had, we're still failing our kids, and it's very sad. But what we can do is just work together so they can feel safer. That's it. Thank you.
Well, I guess this is a chapter to be continued. We definitely want to reach out and invite them to either next meeting or have something over the summer where we can again help and support that transition. So we do have Dr. Christie. I think we'll move on from this. Thank you so much, Clarice, for coming on last minute. Dr. Christie, we missed you earlier. So please, if you have any updates, and then we'll move to the discussion on graphics. Hi, Dr. Christie.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for, first of all, I want to apologize for coming late to the space. I'm sure between everyone here, Rosa, we had our first ever Spanish spelling bee in District 4 this evening. And special thanks to Rosa for serving as one of our judges. But anyway, it was a beautiful event to be able to start. Next year it'll be bigger and better. But it was a great starting point. First and second place went to students from PS 38. Actually, the little second place winner was a first grader. And the third place went to an amazing student from Patrick Henry Prep. And that I was laughing this evening because none of those schools have a dual language program, which I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to give the principals a hard time on Tuesday because I'm like, oh my goodness. Patrick Henry Prep does have a Spanish program, so I know Miss Marte was there and she was super proud because they do have Spanish, not as a dual language program, but they really do have Spanish at Patrick Henry Prep. So today, I'm sure a lot of you heard in the media about the New York City Reads launch, the mayor and the chancellor. That's where I was all the way out. I have to be quite honest. It was I had never been to the school in Brownsville, Brooklyn, on Sumter Avenue. I took the 3 train from my home. It was like the longest ride ever. I didn't know that it was like I should have just continued on to New Lots Avenue and I would have been on the 3 train from beginning to end, which would have been, I don't think I've ever done that before. A train I've been, beginning to end, but never the 3 train. But anyway, the New York City Reads at launch, which I'm sure everyone heard about. There's districts that are in phase 1, phase 2, really trying to focus on creating a new playbook for schools. I'll talk more about it in the CEC meeting tomorrow, and what it with slides and everything, and just about the rationale behind it. This isn't just a New York City concern. It's a national concern about reading proficiencies based on each state. Not to go into all the politics, but each state has their own assessment measure about like how they determine what's on grade level or not. But some of the data is very concerning, and I know it's just one data point, but if you see another large city with only the disparities of especially our Black and brown children who are not reading in comparison to students who are quote unquote on grade level with reading, a lot of that's kind of the why for let's try a different approach. And the mayor and the chancellor were saying today about that it's nobody's fault, like intentionally, it's like, no, it's not anybody's fault, but like, how can we do better supporting our teachers, the pedagogical practices, and thinking about how can we meet the needs of every learner and learning how to read. So that was announced today, to be continued. More about tomorrow. There's a lot. I mean, you'll hear terms about the science of reading. I see Caleras because I think that sometimes we, the science of reading in the way that it's being described as like whether you use science of reading or structured literacy, it's really grounded in these 5 pillars of like phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension, and the different skill sets behind reading. And it's not just phonics, right? And then it's like once the student has acquired these skills, then what's next? So it's not taking away from project-based learning, and making sure that it's just one way to teach literacy, and there are different ways to teach literacy, and thinking about how, if we know that we're not meeting the needs of the learners, that we might need a different approach. So you'll hear a lot about like the dyslexia pilots. And so I want to assure everyone that there's a difference between teaching a child how to read, what's the core instruction, and different things. And I do believe that we need to help every child become successful as a reader across content areas, but we also have to have authentic learning opportunities, project-based learning, and we'll have a lot more of that to go deeper into. But tomorrow's the CEC meeting, which is very exciting. Hopefully you can have a more robust presentation tomorrow. Next week, we have our spelling bee. Later this month, and all are invited. I wish I had the flyer, but I can send it out, or I'll put my email in there for our arts festival. Our D4 Arts Festival, it's going to be at El Museo del Barrio. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. I haven't been to it in person, but Nancy said this used to occur in the past at El Museo, and I'm just really thankful that our young people will have an opportunity to be at a professional venue and really have their amazing art on display in the community. So I'm really, really excited about that. And then this Friday, just so that everyone knows, we have a D4 Human Resources think tank that includes teachers, teacher leaders, principals. We've really collectively been working together to really recruit and partner with different schools to address our ongoing vacancies issues, especially around special ed and dual language in early childhood. It's this Friday, and we have over 300 candidates registered,
Wow.
which is like a great turnout compared to last year. I know that our partners from Hunter, CUNY, Teachers College, Vassar, Pace, like you name it, we've been sharing this flyer with everyone, New York City men who teach. So we're really, really excited about this Friday's hiring fair / meet and greet. And then last but not least, June 17th, it's a Saturday. The DA's office is partnering with us and our community to have an Art of Healing. We did it last year. It was very successful. We're hoping to get even more students and families. That'll be on June 17th from 12 to 4 at the 007 campus located on 120th in Lexington. So yeah, May is here, which May is a busy, busy time of the year. Yes, but I will tell you, this is something that the community board should know about because this is like really, really exciting. Last week I was visiting RSA, the RSA Renaissance School of the Arts campus, and the student council had just met with Mark Levine. And so when I was at the school, the students were presenting to their student body about how once you turn 16, you can apply to become a community board 11 member. So all of the kids were talking about just the community board 11 and what they learned about the community board through this meeting with Mark Levine. And so another thing that we're really trying to work on as a district, and I'm happy we're making progress. We're not where we necessarily want to be, but all of our schools have a student government or student advisory. So far, I've already met with all of the student councils at least 5 times, 3 together, and 2 through my PPO visits. And so whether it's a student council or student advisory, every school is expected to find a way to how do you lift student voice and help our young people feel empowered, which we know like at schools like CPE1, like our students are protesting and activists, but like how do we help which they are, and CP, but we want every student, every young person to feel that their voice matters and that they can be change agents. So I think sorry, that was kind of long-winded. I get excited, but I really want to also, just because I saw it and I know Caleris and I put it in the chat, I spoke to Superintendent Sullivan. I actually spoke a lot to him about the things that were mentioned today regarding how do we make sure Life Center, everything that was said. He is well aware between all of our ongoing communication, whether it's Caleris, Rosa, CB11, that regardless of the decision, we're here to welcome and support. And I have one school in high school in my portfolio. I think it would be a great opportunity. I already spoke to Principal Morales, Luisa Morales, how even their potential partnership could help. We can always learn from each other because there's great things happening in all of our schools. So I think that's, and then I would be remiss if I didn't announce this. Some people know if you follow Twitter, but the National Center for Urban School Transformation awarded Patrick Henry Prep. They received the Gold Award, one of the highest distinctions. And they went to San Diego, and it was a rigorous process with testimonials, site visits. I think I sent everyone, or I can send everyone, just the eligibility, the criteria, and if other schools want to apply. There was another school there from Brooklyn, the Canton School, PS, I believe 249. And in the past, they didn't qualify this year, but Concourse Village, Alexa Sorden from District 7, typically their school has been honored at different years. So, oh, and then I don't know if I shared this with this forum, but Esperanza Preparatory Academy is applying to become a magnet school. Marisol Rosales, which is a huge distinction as well. It can be a huge branding tool and additional funding, like a considerable amount of additional funding. Marisol Rosales was looking, they added a high school from districts 4, 5, and 6. And so they decided to reach out to Esperanza to be one of the first, it'll be the first magnet school in District 4 if we get selected. But fingers crossed, the application is in, and we're really excited for that distinction. And then, oh, the other thing, this is my other highlight. My goodness, I have to stop, I promise. But today we had an enrollment meeting, and I have to say, you know, a lot of you have been in spaces for the last 5 years. We've been talking about enrollment decrease, right? And what are we going to do with our enrollment decline? Well, this year we have one of the highest increases in the city, thanks to all of our collective efforts and our CEC resolution to welcome our newest New Yorkers. We've welcomed almost 1,000. We're getting close to 1,000 students and families. Our attendance has actually, our enrollment has gone up 3.8%, which is some of the highest in all of New York City as of today. And we will continue to support our schools with welcoming and making sure that our teachers are supported and that everyone is supported. So again, thanks to everyone's collective efforts. And that's a testament to just our East Harlem community and what we can do when we work together and support our families. And I do want to share that our newest New Yorkers are not all Spanish speaking. And I just think that's important for people to know and recognize. Our newest New Yorkers are coming from all over the world, literally all over the world, from Russian speaking countries. I met families from Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, Afghanistan, different countries in West Africa. So a lot of times people make the assumption that they're coming from Spanish speaking countries. They really are coming from all across the world. So really just want to say thank you to everyone. So yes, great things happening. And I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat. If you do have any questions or concerns, please continue. We are going to submit another MBK grant. That's the My Brother's Keeper grant. I'm really happy. Next week is the symposium up in Albany, which I will be going to. But what brings me even greater joy is that we were able to get an exception for some of our middle school boys to go. And so we're actually bringing a group of students from a School of Authors 108 this will be the first time that they're allowing 8th graders to go, because typically it's for high school students, but we were able to request an exception to bring our students. So thank you.
Great. Colaris, I see your hand.
Yeah, I also just want to share quickly that we revised the Fair Student Funding Formula and how our schools are funded. And there are 2 additional weights that are now being included in the Fair Student Funding Formula. One is for students that are unhoused. And so a lot of our newcomers are going to add to that weight and add funding to our schools. In addition, there's going to be a concentration weight for students that have more than one designation. That, you know, brings different barriers. So for example, if you're a student that lives below the line of poverty and also have an IEP, or also are an English language learner, or unhoused, we're also going to add a little bit more money to funding in schools. We just got the projections. We don't expect a loss in our enrollment, which is a narrative that has been spun for this last year. We will not be seeing a loss in enrollment. We didn't see a loss this year either. We were expecting a loss of 30,000 students, and that did not happen. And this is the first year that we're going to actually have CFE fully funded, or fair student funding fully funded. So we're expecting to see healthy budgets in our schools. The only other concern is the executive budget that cuts funding from different social services from the mayor's office. But in terms of 2/3 of the funding of our schools, we should see our schools fully funded this coming year. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Calaris. I also just want to add to Dr. Christie, when you mentioned the youth councils, I thought, and it's great that our borough president visited them. You know, one of my thoughts, and I spoke with Ash and Xavier, was that we would love to come out and visit each of these councils and talk about the community board and how your voice can be part of the process. So we did that about 2 years ago with Rosa and Angela and a group of students. And we'd love to take that show on the road and go around to all the schools maybe next year, starting in, September, and visiting 2 schools a month, and try to, employ and get them actively involved. So that's something we want to talk about and move forward. But it's always a collaboration and a community, and it takes a village. So.
David, I'm also sorry. I'm also thinking though, you might want to, we have our D4 student advisory. And I mean, of course you could still always visit all the schools, absolutely. But I think you could also we're going to have at least one more meeting in June. If you or Xavier wanted to talk to the students about the community board 11 or so forth. So, it's up to you. I just want to, it's an offering. It's just an offering, but I think that, at least they could put faces with names or hear a little bit more.
If David can't do it, I'm willing to do it.
Okay. Oh, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I literally just graduated high school, so.
That was a few months ago, Ash.
That was a year ago.
It's a year in June. Anyway, thank you, Dr. Christie, as always, being in our space and squares. We do have one more agenda item, and that is to discuss graphics. So first I want to apologize that due to the meeting being changed from Tuesday to Wednesday, I wasn't able to make that meeting and be part of the process and helping us decide and make a decision. So I guess I want to just take a moment and just ask a question. The question is why? Why? And if you could see the bottom of this is the East Harlem Keystone Club, which is a part of Boys and Girls Initiative that Children's Aid does. The question is why? Why is there so much youth violence in our community? Can anybody give me an answer to that? Anybody have an answer why we have so much violence in our community? Why too often schools are shelter-in process or close the doors because there is a shooting outside of the school in the broad daylight? Anybody want to raise a hand and help us understand why we have so much youth violence in our community? Rosa.
Yes, thank you. I think we have this because we have a lot of needs. The system is not working like it's supposed to be working. It's not providing a lot of healthy jobs. People are in different toxic work environments. Households are not having the necessary income to support their own children. Children have a lot more necessity needs, and they see that at home also. And I have a lot more, but I'm gonna yield my time to, I believe I saw Claudia in there to chime in.
Yes, I saw Claudia and then Isaac. Claudia.
Yeah, I mean, Rosa hit on a lot of on some of the points. Also, we have to remember as adults, the children of today are going through something and going through life that we can't even imagine. Because when you look at the bullying, I know in my day when I left school, it ended. These children are on it 24/7. It's many reasons why this is happening. But what I see in the community in talking to the youth, they need support. They need financial stability. They need to be just spoken to. And I also see where we have a lot of so-called Block boys and how we like to stigmatize it and call them gangs. The reason why we have so much quote unquote gang activity is because they're going where the children are. They're reaching them, and we're not having real conversations with our children or with the community about what's going on. And I'm gonna leave it at that, but that was one of the main points I just wanted to put across.
Thank you, Claudia. Isaac?
Good evening, David, and everyone. My answer to that question, so I have 5 kids. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 3. I think a lot of it, what folks said already touches on some of it. Forgive me, I'm outside. But I really think a lot more of it is poor parenting. I'll be very honest and just say that. I'll say that parents are relying too much on the schools to take care of their kids instead of actually, taking the time to do a lot of the stuff that they should be doing with them. And we offset, I think parents offset a lot onto schools, after school programs. And it may be intentional, unintentional, but I see a lot of that happening. But also, I think more importantly, we not really on one token, we'll say, hey, we need more programs, but like what we saw when programs come that actually are here to support, we don't know how to receive them. We place judgment on the people who are running the programs, things like that. So I don't know how we'll actually get there, but I think with respect to what happens on this community board, it's a lot of blocking the resources that our young people need.
Thank you. Asher?
I think I agree with what everyone has said. Another thing that I think it is just people accepting a cycle that has gone unchecked for far too long.
Anybody else want to add? So let me ask this, what do people think some of the solutions are? Angela, I'm sorry, I just saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
I believe that we do need more activities. Yes, we have to listen to young people. What I disagree with, I still don't believe that this individual program is the answer.
I didn't ask about any
Mr.
program. I
Scott
just asked.
brought up that we, when somebody comes to come in and you have that on the screen, okay? There's not enough activities for the children, and I agree that the parents need to be more actively involved in their children's lives and begin to create the dynamics that they want to see. You can't expect the after-school program to do everything. You have to be supportive of that dynamic. And not every program that comes here is necessarily going to be the program we need. Thank you.
And I want you to hold that thought. So now, what are the solutions? What do we perceive in our role as solutions to the youth violence in our community? And it's not just youth violence, but I want to focus on the youth violence. Are those new hands or old hands? I'm sorry. What are people?
Actually, this is a new hand. I just wanted to humbly ask specifically Ms. Donadell to stop trying to call me out. This happened at the last Youth and Education Committee and this one as well. I'm speaking very generally. And if, you know, personally, you don't like what I say, that's personal, you know, but to keep calling me out personally, sort of, it creates the same environment we had last week.
I
That comment I
apologize
made
if you
to
think that I'm
everybody,
trying to call you
it's
out.
to everybody.
So
Thank you.
what I want to try to do is guide us through a process of really looking at how we function as a board and how we both receive and make judgments or make decisions about what we support or don't support as a committee, as a board. Now, we all know that we may not always get everybody to vote on everything, but that when we do vote, that we do make a consensus effort that whatever that vote is, that we support either the committee or the full board's vote, whether we necessarily agree or don't agree. And I'm not here to talk about individuals necessarily. I'm really here to just find out and understand why. And I put this up here, why, that we had a meeting and a full board meeting, and we had 26 people vote on something that the committee supported, and everybody has every right to vote the way that conscience tells them. So we had 26 people vote, and out of that 26 people, 13 people voted for in the full board to support the motion. And then there were 6 and 7 people that either voted no or abstained. And I understand why people sometimes vote abstain, but I don't think everybody sometimes understands when your vote is an abstention vote, it is really counted in the not the progressive positive vote. It is counted as a kind of no vote in the process. And so we had 13 people support it. We had 7 that voted no that didn't support it, and 6 that abstained. And yet the vote did not pass in full board. So I ask again, when we look at what are our solutions, you know, what are the things that we are looking for? Angela did say something, more activities, more different kinds of things. Activities for different kids respond to different activities differently. And what works with one kid may not work with another kid. And I guess my question is, I listened to the full board. I listened to the discussion, and I want to thank everybody for sharing. I want to thank everybody who did do homework and did do follow-up. But what I heard through most of it was more of a discomfort or dissatisfaction with an individual. And I heard really less about the investigative of what this program actually has done and turned out. Now, I also heard that we asked that at this new meeting, maybe we have one of the participants come back. Not a bad idea, but I've been on this board for like 14 years, and we've never to this extent have asked people to bring participants and ask them to talk about the program. Are we setting a new precedent? You know, it was also mentioned that we hope we do this diligent process and not support people that really may not have it. But what I also learned is that we support a lot of people that we don't put through the same process in trying to understand the work that we've done. We got caught up in semantics, and then we got caught up in our corners, and we did not move something forward. Now, I would like to know what are some of the solutions besides activities, because there are far too few programs that really do address this need. How many of us work on reducing the youth violence? It's not a job that everybody wants to do. It's not a job everybody can do. And those that want to do it, I commend them. And if they have success in their program, I commend them also. And I think, as Russell so eloquently put, not everybody comes to fit this model that we should think should be a youth developer or a teacher. But sometimes you need a different type of teacher to reach a kid that may be in a different place in their life. I was one of those kids. Yes, I was 17 years old, and violence, and that was part of my life, running the streets. I got arrested with a gun, and fortunately, I had people that helped guide me through that process, but it could have been very different. I went to too many funerals in my 20s. I'm now 60. That's 40 years ago. It really hasn't changed as much as we want to believe it's changed. And we want to believe it's gotten worse. Yes, it has. So then why are we spending so much time attacking or an individual's character that we may not like, that may do a dirty job that we may not want to do, that's willing to do it and possibly have some success doing it. When I was 16, I went to work in Food City supermarkets. And I went to be a cashier and a delivery. And I was introduced to the pits. The pits, does anybody know what the pits are? The pits is the conveyor belt that brings the food upstairs to the supermarket, the vegetables. What happens as things go up a conveyor belt on an angle, things fall. And every 2 months, the new workers that just start go to the pits. It's a dirty job. I couldn't believe what I had went into in ruining a new pair of sneakers, standing in a couple of inches of vegetables that wilted away, but the job had to be done because we couldn't leave it. Dirty jobs have to be done. Are we willing to do that dirty job? Are we so quick to put somebody down without looking at maybe the quality of the work that they are producing? And again, we all have different opinions of what should be given in terms of curriculums or exposed and what things should not be. Where do we go from here as a committee? Where do we go when we convince the full board to not support something that's so much needed in our community? Where are we going as a board that we support other programs? We talk about all the stuff around the human services and all these drug addicted programs, but we support them. We have supported them. I have not been in any of these meetings where one of those places, and I won't mention names, have come and we have not given our support to the work that they do. And yet we have not asked for any of them to bring somebody that was a substance abuser or a homeless person and put them on stage. So where do we go as a board? Where do we go? Why? Why? Yes, I did listen. I want to make the right decisions. I want to support the work that we do. And I want tough jobs to be done. I work with many of those children. Where do we go? Sage, I know your hand's been up. Please.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think my answer to the why question is that people on the board simply were not comfortable with what graphics was. It's not the responsibility of the board to support everything. It's the responsibility of the board to say how we feel about each individual thing that comes to us. And the board decided, and I didn't even get to vote, and I would have voted no, that the board was not comfortable with what Mr. Smith presented. And I think that's totally fine. If we support everything that comes to the board, then we're going to be supporting things that are not what is in the best interest of the community. I think people wanted some more from Mr. Smith, and now the ball is in his court if he really wants our support. He can come back and give us what we need in order to support him. But the default should not be a yes. That invalidates the power of the board. Then the support means nothing.
Sage, we had 13 votes that supported that at 26 that were present.
And then we had 13 that did not support it.
Right.
Because they were not comfortable with it.
Right. And was it more determined based on a feeling about the individual or the program? Because
it doesn't matter.
Wait a minute, Sage. What we did have is we had 2 members of the committee, of the board, that went and attended, and everybody was invited to attend. But nobody did. See, we gave it another month. So, you know, I'd rather turn something down, not because of a person I may like or dislike his personality, or maybe the combativeness that he gave back to us as we were equally combative. I don't know. All I know is that, you know, I've learned to try and find ways to find solutions that are win-win for everybody. You know.
Yeah, I would love to find a win-win here. I think
Thank
that is on Mr. Smith to come back and present us with something. And I even said I would be more comfortable lending my support if he was to, one, maybe make a presentation to the rest of the board so that people knew and could ask questions that maybe we were unable to during our first meeting, and also just to see the outcome. Okay, you mentioned that gun violence has gotten worse. Well, Mr. Smith has been doing this for 21 years. Maybe he's not the solution if it's getting worse. Not everything is going to fix the problem. Not saying I have the solutions, but what Mr. Smith presented, he did not convince me, and he did not convince the board that he is helping. And I don't think it would be appropriate for us to lend our support if we are not convinced of that.
Right, and that's an individual and as a collective. If I would have attended the meeting that day, I would have been the 14th vote and it would have passed. So
maybe there is one more vote that also would have attended in another situation that would have voted no or abstained. And then again, it would not have passed. So I think the vote did not pass. That's where we are right now.
Right, and it's been sent back to committee. So I'm not asking us to take a position today. I will ask us to take a position in June again. Because I think we need to discuss things, take a moment, step back, and then come back again. Isaac, Sage, are you done? I'm sorry, I want to, you know.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say,
sorry.
sorry, Isaac. I'm fine on voting on it again, but I think the reason people abstained or voted no in the full board was because they wanted more information. If we don't have any new information, and if Mr. Smith is not there to present new information, I don't think there should be a second vote until something changes.
So what information are we looking for? And that ain't necessarily the answer at this moment. Just a thought. Because then we have to ask what we're looking for. And Sage, I did hear some of what you did communicate, and like you just said earlier, you communicated the same in the full board. Isaac?
I'll just be brief. Just as a committee chair, it would not be appropriate for us at our committee to allow how we feel about someone's character to override the work that they are doing. We also don't place the blame of an entire issue onto one organization. But I to answer your question, David, I think that I'll be honest, and I see this at my committee, and I've seen this since I've been on the community board, I think the way we advocate is bad, and that's the biggest problem. I think the way we make decisions as a collective, just listening to the conversation, I think it does boil down to how we advocate. I don't think we can continue to blame organizations and blame other people. I think how we advocate, what we value, how we communicate to one another, how we, it's a lot of like back and forth. Folks are real arrogant about stuff, real pompous about stuff, and where they should be humble because we're actually not representing our own personal feelings, but we're supposed to be representing a larger community. So I think there's a lot more of the problem is not the organization to be pointing fingers back out, because it's not just this organization. This happens with different organizations the same way. If people don't like the person who comes, then they don't support the work, whereas the work was very, very important. And so, yeah, I think the solution more is how the community representatives represent the community.
Thank you. Rosa?
Thank you so much. I was like, when is it going to be my turn? So one, I know he provided a day for all of us to go, right? I have tons of meetings, including in person And one of those meetings was going to the Edwards High School, and I couldn't show up. I did do my homework. I did do my investigation. I did reach out to DOE personnel, and I'm waiting to hear from what exactly this is, because I am still not clear on the work that he's doing. I have never even heard of this before. And I have been supporting in the school, no kidding around, for like almost 16, 17 years. And he's been 20 years having this graphic program. So I want to know more. Like, he's not telling me as a parent, as a leader, he's not telling me anything. He's just, this is in my brain and still engraved in my brain that he's going to go target problematic, quote unquote, that you're not seeing my fingers.
Okay, but
Kids,
you know what, Rosa,
but
Rosa, Rosa, let me,
I'm
Rosa,
sorry, I am speaking. One
I
mic,
know, but you know
please.
what, Rosa, you know, I would
But
hope
you
that
gave me
after
the
we,
floor. Can I continue what I'm saying? I'm just, like, I would like to speak
right,
freely,
but the
right?
question was about finding solutions, not rehashing
That's
everything.
what I'm getting. But that's what I'm getting. If I was able, if there's any other presentation that he's probably coming up soon, I will be more than willing. I will take off from work because I work 6 days per week. I will take off from work to
Okay,
show
so
up.
Rosa,
I
what
wasn't
you're
able to
asking
do
is
so.
if there's more things, I know, but I don't want to spend 2 hours going over what we reiterated 2 hours at the last meeting. You know what?
Right.
And the meeting prior, right? Because,
Right.
you know, we got caught up on even with the doctor and false representation. And you know what?
Yes.
It becomes a little bit targeted after a while, because I can look at things now and say, today we're in a society where people should be allowed to identify how they feel they want to be identified, right? People should, and he explained the whole thing about the doctor. So let me ask you this question, everybody, because I'm going to take this commercial break because I am the chair. How many of y'all know Dr. J? How many people know Dr. J? He wasn't a real doctor, but a name was given to him, a name he assumed. Dr. J was called Dr. J because, does anybody know the reason why?
Dr. J received no benefit professionally from calling himself Dr. J because he was a basketball player. I think it's different when you are saying that you are some sort of clinician who is going to solve
Did he say he was a
youth
clinician?
violence.
Sage, when
He says
was
he's
asked about
when
Sage,
people ask him about his PhD,
first,
he will
can
say
I be right?
he's in the process of getting it. He wants people to think he is some sort of academic.
But he also explained that he did not have it. He did not sit up there and said, I have something I don't have.
When asked about it, he had to tell the truth, but he wouldn't have said that unless we, as we did our research and inquired.
And that's what we should do. And there was an explanation. But again, we get caught on semantics, because nowadays I can call myself and identify, and somebody should be wrong if they tell me I can't identify. Now, I'm not misrepresenting who I am.
But that's not a professional credential. That is an identity. It's different with doctor. It's like if you pretend to be a lawyer, for example, that's a crime. Even if you identify as a lawyer, you can't pretend to be something you're not, because the name implies some sort of expertise.
It was explained. Now, you
but
have
we
a right
had to
accept
ask
that explanation or not? Personally. So yes, I don't want to get caught up on the semantics. I don't want to talk about targeting, because in the presentation we had prior to the board, I mean, to this session and what we had in the full board, they talked about a targeting population. And it's not him that targets the kids. It's the school that identifies the kids. See, and there were a lot of things that said that drew people into maybe feeling that I can't support this because I don't have the information. That may have not been, if that wasn't presented in a manner, then maybe it wouldn't be. Not everybody turns over their work. Not everybody gives everything up. And look, I want to say, I particularly did not like the confrontation that he gave back and wanting something from us. But yet I'm not going to, at this point, tell this man how he should or should not behave. I will look at what the services he's providing. Are these services meeting the needs in our community? Maybe some of us feel they are, maybe some of us feel they're not, and that's fine. But this was also given by Xavier to come back to the committee to have further discussion and then to make a decision whether we support or don't support or just leave it where it was. So I don't want to reiterate everything that we did do that left us nowhere, because the committee supported and the board didn't. And that's okay. But I think we still need to go through this process to make sure that we give everybody a fair shot. And if we're going to ask things and to come forward, I hope we ask these same things into all the letters of support that we give. Asher and then Russell.
All right. I have a couple of things I just want to say quickly. When this was brought up at full board, this is going back to solutions. We all want solutions and stuff. And I said, I put my email in the chat from what I remember. And I said, send me any questions you have for me to relay to the graphics people. Because if you're having all these concerns, send it to either me or David. And I have not received one email. So people want answers to questions, but I feel like I'm pulling strings here in a way. And also, look, whether we agree that going like David said, whether we agree about him calling himself a doctor or not, I I I think where we went wrong was our main thing against him was us judging him instead of the program necessarily. It was a lot of attacks against him. So whether you agree with him as a person or not, because there's many people in this committee that community that run programs that you don't have to agree with them, but people still use their services. So that's all I have to say.
Good evening. I think the board is actually working and working its way. It's supposed to work. Controversy and debate and discussion. A lot has been said. A lot is correct. I think we veered off our mark as community. Our role is just making judgment on what's good for the community based on the subject matter. This brother with the strong personality, I don't think we're being fair to him, because the decision that was made at the community board the full board meeting, was being influenced by our committee, who had strong opinions that were not positive, mostly not positive, that it put a number of people who were not there on the fence. We are now asking this gentleman, this program leader, to deliver something that he gave us an opportunity to do and we didn't do. Our committee, as a committee, we did not, as a committee, have a lion's share of our participants, including myself, to take him up on his offer to come and view his program. But we did have some key people from our board and the committee to actually witness his program in its work. So we're asking him to come back to show more when we didn't go to him to see what he did. The opinions that were passed upon him were those that were not there to see and witness. This gentleman, again, is only asking for a letter of support, not to do his program here per se, just to give his program support. He's been proven to do what he's done throughout the state. We sometimes forget, I've heard a few members say he's getting compensated. I would like everybody that's here who goes to work to go to work and provide a service or a good and not get compensated for it. His compensation to an organization comes from federal or state funding, which pays for the delivery of that service. So sometimes we take aback when someone said they're getting paid. Everybody's supposed to get paid. Other than that, they're volunteer programs. And if we know better, volunteerism only goes but so far. So we as a board has to think about what program, what is the good of the program? He's not asking to do the program, so we just fighting over whether or not we're gonna give him a letter of support. And everybody has the right to say, I don't agree with him. I don't, if it's about the program, forget him. Because there's some nasty ass programs we vote for with some nasty ass people leading them to bring some bullshit into our community and we vote for it. But we don't ask for them to prove the evidence, let us see, like David said, that's what we do. So right now, the gentleman, he said to us aggressively, passively, he doesn't need our support. I told him after the fact, you earn what you get. He earned he earned the position he's in now. But again, that's a program, a service that's needed in our community, in all communities. His program alone is not going to be one solution to any of this gun violence all around the country. But if one kid is saved, 10 kids are dissuaded from picking up a gun or a knife or violence, or if 25 decide, you know what, I'm gonna be a nice person, that impact should be more important to us, what the program potential is, than the asshole that might be leading it. If that asshole can stop and save lives, and I apologize for my frankness, but we got to understand our position. Our position is not to be judge, executioner. We all have our own values. If we could take our personal opinions and think about the greater good, because he's not asking him or other people. They're just some just ask for support, and then stay in our lane. So we're asking him now to deliver more than we were willing to deliver, to meet him halfway, because our committee members influence the bigger board to get on the fence or to say no. That's all.
Claudia?
I want to start off in saying thank you, Mr. Schuler. I appreciate your frankness. At the beginning, and I'm just going to reiterate it again, I know Kai because that's how I know him. He is from Washington Houses. And I'm speaking as a mother of 5 children also, from the ages of 24 years old to 8 months old. When Kai first started, graphics has been around for as long as he's saying it's been. Because when it started, multiple children from this community over here in Washington Houses, East River, Metro North, and Carver, which happen to be NYCHA developments. To this day, these children who are now adults, they also go to do help with that program. They cover various things that they do. His program works. And I'm here to say that, and that's why I stood by it from day one. Can he be arrogant at times? But I just feel that he gave back exactly what he was receiving. But the information is there. But I'm just gonna attest to the graphics program. I've seen where it started and how it's grown, and it's something that works. And I'll just leave the floor at that.
Thank you, Claudia. Sage?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Russell. I really like the words you just gave, and I think you speak really beautifully about it. And I agree that the greater good of the community should be all that we are really focusing on. And I think everybody who voted uh, and advocated not to write this letter of support had the greater good of the community at heart. I don't, and personally, I wasn't judging Mr. Smith, but I had a reaction when he misled the committee. And I think that is totally valid and not a personal judgment in that he is a better or worse person as a result of that. But I just ask, what does that mean for the organization? If somebody who is at the leader of the organization, really the organization is Mr. Smith, like on the website, it says like, who are we? My name is Kai Smith, and then it tells his life story. So I think it's difficult to separate the organization from the person in charge of it. But also that it just makes me wonder, like, why, if Mr. Smith is going to mislead us, a community that really wants to support him, mislead it in a way that he does not have to. Like I was totally on board. He was a member of the boys club, just like me. He's a fellow East Harlemite. Like I was all for supporting what he had to deliver. But he just listening to the way he presented the information, I became much more skeptical about it. I wanted to support him, and he advocated, in my view, against himself by not being completely forthright with us. And I think that's totally something that the committee should consider when thinking about whether or not to support the organization. And it's not just a letter, it's saying, do we want more of what you are providing? And based off of what Mr. Smith gave to us, I don't support at this time more of graphics. I am skeptical of graphics now and skeptical of Mr. Smith, which graphics is very closely tied to. So I have concerns, and I would vote no again until these things are resolved. I think it's totally, we talk a lot about like setting precedents for other organizations. I think whatever the committee and the board needs in order to support something is totally valid. I think if in this case we say, hey, we need some more from you, Mr. Smith, we have some more questions, and that maybe hasn't happened with other people, there's a reason for that. I think Mr. Smith gave a presentation and described an organization that is different from many of the other people who come to us. And I think we had very good reason to want more information and to be uncomfortable with what he provided. And lastly, about his offer to let us attend a meeting. I was out of the country the one date that he provided. I would be totally willing, and I, in fact, am eager now to go to one of his other, if he could give us another date.
Thank you, Sage. I think, part of what you present is also finding some solutions and still willing to be open. So I appreciate those comments. In all fairness, I thought I didn't want to ask. I did reach out to Mr. Smith and informed him of what the committee's the full board's vote was, and I did mention to him I was not asking him to come back at this time because I wanted us to have our discussion. And like you said, Sage, you would like to have an opportunity to go see. See, that's a real good ask. That's kind of what Asher was saying is, what other questions do we want that we could propose? Or maybe is there another opportunity to come see the program where people can get that better sense and make a more collective decision. I want anybody that comes before our board to feel welcomed, even when we're questioning them, even when we're doing our due diligence and making sure that what they're saying before us is accurate and that the program or the service meets what its actually goals are to meet. Isaac?
I'm sorry. I guess this is making me. I guess what came to mind, forgive me, is that I guess I'm wondering how do we feel we want to work together, right? Because the board is we're one board, but we're all individuals, and our votes are individuals. So we can't say like when the committee needs something because I didn't need that, but some people did need that. But I think from what since I've been on this board for the past 4 or 5 years, it's been like if someone on the committee is able to show up to something and they come and give a report back, that's sufficient for the committee, and in the same way we send people to be on advisory boards because they come back and they give a report. And we trust the word of our committee members, our fellow committee members. Um, John Green went, Xavier went, and now we have Claudia telling us that she grew up with this man. Like I don't need no more about his character or his work. From my own analysis of it, I was able to see that it was. I could get past the attitude. I didn't appreciate it. I knew it wasn't going to fly, but I looked at the work and I tried to prioritize that. Um, but I also was looking forward to hearing from the people who went to the events. And when I heard what I heard, I was like, okay, this is great. And now hearing even Claudia say that, I mean, how much? I mean, do we even trust each other to be able to? Because from what I believe, we were like a team. So like everybody's not going to be able to go to. All of us can't go to every event. So if one or two of us are able to go, or one or two of us have a word who can give back, I think, and that's why the committee, the naysayers, were able to persuade people because we trust committee members. You know what I mean? So when a committee member comes back with a good report, we shouldn't still have criticism or questions that may undermine what that other committee member might have seen. I know that we definitely want to hear certain things from people directly, but how much do we? Because what John Green said, what Xavier said, and it sounds like what Claudia said is just not, just doesn't matter. Like I need to go see. We needed questions. It really was just. It seems like a personal thing. So I guess I'm just wondering for future reference, is is it enough for one or two of us to go to an event, or does everybody need to go in order for people to feel comfortable with a particular organization and their work and the people therein? That was more like a comment question kind of thing.
Well, it's funny, Isaac, because I kind of felt that because we had members go, because Claudia did speak at the last meeting, at the first one, about some of the relationship that you knew with the individual, that yes, normally that would be enough, but that doesn't mean everybody still has to not question things that they find questionable. Because y'all all know me, and some of y'all may not, but y'all know me when I get behind that issue, and very strongly and passionate, yes, I may take it to that next level as well. And I'm not asking anybody here not to do the due diligence they did do. But Isaac does raise a strong point that we cannot go to everything. And Rosa, yes, I know where you at. I mean, you everywhere, and your places I ain't even going. And yet we can't always be in all the same places at the same time. And yet we do have to trust each other, and we have to feel comfortable with each other. And that's kind of really what I felt was important in this discussion. Not necessarily whether we go and approve it or not approve it, but how do we function as a committee? How do we rely on each other when we can't be the eyes in that meeting? When somebody else is gonna represent the board in an event that's out in the community, not all 50 of us are there. And I know I go to a lot of those events in different capacities. And sometimes there's a CEC table, and then on that same table, I got the community board flyer, the banner. And we do those things because we want to be part of something. And as much as we want to be part of everything, we can't always be. And we have to have that trust in each other that so-and-so is coming. We did have our chair of the board go and talk very favorably, and he understood better some of the things that we were wrestling with in the committee because he went and saw the presentation. Russell and then Asha.
I'm at a point where I think this is for me, there is nothing that this brother's program, seeing it will do any good, because he's already done that. He's going to be Dr. Kim, I'm just lost for words. He's going to be who he is, to sell for who he is based on his track record of success. He has 59 community boards he can visit in New York City. He might get 58 out of 59 of individuals saying we might need that program, because he's going to be a cantankerous personality in all 59. And there'll be others to see that. He might be able to say, I got 58 community boards to support my program, my initiative, because they want to see that wherever I go in the country, outside of New York City, because I'm looking for federal support to do this, to perhaps even have the program replicated as a model, as other people have a model program to be replicated. But he'll say, he could even go around the country and say, the only neighborhood I couldn't get was the one that I grew up and lived in. One where I created all the damage in my life and did 16 years in jail, poisoning it. So I wanted to come cured. But everybody else saw it. So that might be good enough for him, because his program is not being questioned now. He as a person is being questioned. Like I said, it will be studied. How could a committee where the board chair, the committee chair, and a member of the committee went, and a few members that were not present on the committee convinced the board? Like I said, board members are the full board men to get on the fence legitimately, not falsely, because their opinions are honest, they're fair. That's what people are trained to believe. They live the life of that, and they're true to their conviction. But unfortunately, those voices made other sincere people be in doubt. So it's better to be in doubt and say a yes, and even though an abstention is equal to a no, but that's what it is. So we're given, like I said in the beginning, this process is actually working because we're in fair discussion about it. And if we could come to realize that the process is working, and the vote is the vote. That brother's going to win. He's winning his battle. He's winning his challenge. Do we get every time what we want 100%? That's like when we get tested. You know, some folk get all A's all the time, but there's some B students too. And I think in graduate school with a B that's what we got to get, at least a B. He's going to be the doctor, whether it's now or in the future. He has to respect a lot of folk, a lot of professionals with PhDs. And we know when we earn our degrees, we take pride in that. And we're not slighted. You know, that's why when we have a PhD and you call us Mr., we offended. Like, hey, doctor. So we already know, or Miss, and she wants to be a doctor too. So like I said, we're doing our due diligence. I don't want it to go back. I don't want him to be invited back. He's done his due. Like I said, some people have self-respect. He has enough self-respect. And I think if he decided, if we were to invite him back and he said no, there'll be a number of us that be offended that he said no. How dare he? Because sometimes people look in the mirror and said, you know what? I love myself so much. I have so much self-respect. I take a bow. And sometimes not taking a win is not a loss, because his program is speaking for itself. And I don't think we could do any more other than having a continuous respectful conversation. And then only the neighborhood he grew up in is said it wasn't good enough. Those that could have seen it and heard it. I believe that if we all have gone and seen it, we might have overlooked that he was a doctor, like Julius Erving. Doc made money off of that. He wasn't professing to be anything else. But like I said, this is it. I mean, no apology on my part for talking so long either.
No apology needed.
This is where we are. This is like frank discussion. And like I said, with being on this board since 1982, this is almost the first time we've had this type of confrontation. But again, I guess we've evolved from having community board members who actually came from the community to having migrants and everybody else come in, and everybody has a PhD. We can't see that the poop on the street is really from a dog, and that everything is so sophisticated that we can't see A is A, and that our kids are running around without parents. Not that it has changed, but the guidance that we don't have. So we're talking about, in this particular population, it's not about young people who don't have parents. It's about young people who have a stronger influence outside of their homes, like we all did. We were all right until we went outside. Our parents told us what to do and not to do. Until we get to our buddies, girls and guys, that's where the other influence kicks in. Right now, we used to have beat them up, beat each other's asses, then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, we playing with each other. Right now, they walking away with a body. They walking away with a body. 2 families are destroyed. And that's what we're trying to do. Who's going to intervene without having on a bulletproof vest and say, you know what, put it down. So we've done our due, in my opinion. So, but it is what it is. This program is not at stake, and we got to come to that reality. The man is being held accountable for his action on how he portrayed himself with or without credentials. He could have 10 undergraduate degrees, but not have, and 20 master's degree, but not have the PhD. But because that's what he said he wants to be, he doesn't have that yet, triggered in some. And because he might use the wrong adjective or targeting, or might be for others, he did what he did. He just couldn't get it in his own backyard where he tore up and tried to repair. So he'll live with that.
Thank you, Russell. Asher?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if this was already said. I heard like part of the conversation. My internet has been going in and out. But I think we just, as a committee, need to learn to trust each other. And if someone says that they saw, like they went to an event and they saw something positive, I think we need to trust other people's words for it. Because we're supposed to be working together. I don't think we're working together right now.
John?
Thank you, David. First of all, I want to thank Russell for what he said, and I'm going to go back to something that he said a little while ago. He said that if a program can save one, if you can keep a young person from picking up a gun and potentially killing somebody, or it can prevent a young person from being killed, it's worthwhile. Listen, I know I'm quite sure we all know someone that's been a victim of gun violence. I lost a cousin to gun violence 3.5 years ago, and when I watch the news and hear that, it's disheartening. But the thing is that what I'm about to say may not make a lot of sense, though. Sometimes a little blind faith works. I mean, you don't have to have blind faith until you're stupid, but the thing is but sometimes you can go on something on blind faith and just say, okay, let's try this. I mean, because if something is out of control, like you need something as a solution. So that's why I went to his session. I liked what I saw. I liked what I heard from him and from the young people. So, but the thing is that it's just I understand there are some people who aren't satisfied with what he did, and I guess hopefully we will come to some solution somewhere along the line. But I just hope that we can also help him, because the thing is that organizations like that is just a drop in the bucket for to try to stem a tidal wave. But the thing is that put that drop in the bucket because it's needed.
Thank you. Sage?
I just want to say I hear what everybody's saying. I think it's important that we trust each other. And I think at the core of this, I do trust everybody who went there, and I listened to what you guys said. Honestly, if Mr. Smith was not at the follow-up meeting and I only heard from the people who went and they said it was great, then I would have been like, okay, we're good. Mr. Smith said new things at the second meeting, which gave me new reservations, and the people who went were not able to make me feel better about those new things. And Mr. Smith only made me feel worse about them as he continued talking. And then after the meeting, when I did more research with these new skepticisms, I only became increasingly alarmed by what I was looking up. I think in addition to this, all of this is a lot of the arguments that people are giving to support Mr. Smith are assuming that I think we can all say he has a good mission at heart, which is to reduce violence and help these kids, which is what we want to do as well. But we're all assuming that what he's doing is actually helping, when that may not be the case. It could be such that Mr. Smith, by bringing these programs into schools, and you asked earlier, David, what is causing these problems. Maybe this is a contributing factor when a school, maybe a kid is acting up because he's not being fed well and he's coming to school hungry every day. And then the school says, this is a problem child. You go fix him, Kai, or Dr. Smith. And Mr. Smith goes and he puts him in this new classroom, and suddenly that kid is getting a different curriculum, is separated from his friends and peers, feels alienated at school, doesn't resolve the hunger problem because maybe he's not bringing, I don't know, like it could be anything. That's just an example. And now he's getting a different, because Mr. Smith wouldn't talk to us about the curriculum. Now he's getting a different lesson, and maybe that results in that kid losing friendships, dropping out of school, and going to gang violence or resorting to some other problem. And we don't know whether that is happening or not. So that's just one example of a concern that I think is totally valid and that I would want to hear from Mr. Smith on. And I think that, regardless of what you think of Mr. Smith, there could just be fundamental problems with what he's doing right now.
There could be. And, I would hope then we would be able to uncover those things. But I just want to add this, Sage, and I thank you. And Sage, don't get me wrong. We definitely need debate. We need healthy debate that examines everything from one side of the pendulum to the other, so that we do make the healthy decision or choices that we do make. But I'm wondering this as I hear people say when he takes kids to change the curriculum. This is not where he takes the kid every day for the whole school day and works with them aside from the school. This is a program in the school that kids participate in as any other program or academic class that they take in substitute for something else. So this is not like he's taking everybody's kids and takes them away into this room and they're by themselves. But I also would want to be very cautious that we don't make negative assumptions when we don't have the facts either to make those assumptions, and to just draw conclusions that we may not have evidence for would be an injustice as well. We must have debate, people. We must look at things. I always pride myself as having a leader with having people with different opinions. I don't need people to yes me. I don't need people to just agree with me, because that doesn't help me see that maybe there is something else. Maybe there is an alternative. So yeah, I mean, I would also say this, in working in the school and working with youth for 40 years, a kid that's hungry that we make a referral for, generally we know that the behavior is not just associated to one thing or not, that there are usually many factors. And that when principals and teachers and guidance counselors and social workers and youth development workers, we do try to find these solutions of activities that, as Angela said, that would keep kids engaged and occupied. And different kids are engaged at different levels of activities with different in relationships. So I don't think arbitrarily he's going into a school and that he's going around and looking at which kids, or there's real thought to the process. That's it there. Rosa?
Yes, thank you, David. I also want to add that at the beginning of the meeting, I believe the first meeting, if I remember correctly, he did mention that he does not need our letter of support. So I see this back and forth going like hours and hours and hours. And in all honesty, I like to see, what is it that he's doing in the program, right? Like, how is he making the change, right? Yes, like as a paralegal, like the he said, she said, I don't work that way. You know what I mean? Like I've been a paralegal for the past 20 years. So I need to see proof. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go in person. And I think also that being a doctor or not being a doctor, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like having one more certificate on your wall doesn't make you a better person, right? He is doing some type of work, and I praise him for trying to have this program, but I don't know what he does. Right.
So
I
Rosa,
could not
so
just
Rosa, let me
believe
ask you
him.
this. Rosa, can I
Go
ask you a
ahead, go ahead.
question? Because I want to go back to this. I think you're somebody that really does try to go to as many places. And I know because I see you and you're at other places I hear about, you're there. But you, like we said earlier, you cannot go everywhere. And sometimes you have to send out members of your team. You have to send out members of a committee. You have to send out a spouse. I need you to go listen to this information because I can't be here. And if we say that unless we're there every time and we can't support unless we're there every time, we're not going to support much. You can't be everywhere. And we have to trust. This is what we're talking about, Rosa. Nobody's saying, Rosa, you didn't make it and you didn't make it. Why didn't you make it, Rosa? No, you couldn't make it because you couldn't make it. There are things I would love to go to that I couldn't make. Like I said earlier, before we got on the meeting, I wanted to be on the meeting. I always want to be on the meeting on the Monday before we have our Wednesday meeting, but I couldn't.
Right.
And
No,
I have to
and I
trust
agree.
that you and the rest of the committee that was on that meeting and Dr. Christie are doing the work. And then you inform me. But again, I'm not saying if people need more, they need more. That's all an individual thing, as Russell said.
Right. Right. I do
what do we
need
do
more,
then?
like,
What do we do if we can't be at every meeting and we are sending representatives?
Like right now, I do not know what the program does. I just know what the program's title is, but I specifically do not know the curriculum. I don't know the academics. I don't know how rigorous there is. I don't know if that's creating
But I
opportunities
think,
for the
see,
kids
this
to
is where
think
we're
on their
getting,
own. I don't know
we're
that.
getting
And not
lost with
having
something.
parents consent, David, that drives me nuts.
Rosa, I have children that do stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It should drive you nuts.
No, it doesn't, Rosa, because the school, you sign a contract with the school. The school is the school. When I sign a contract with, what is it, stage for the step person, the parents don't know all that. I have a teacher that the parents know. I'm offering this service that the parents are aware of. They can say, I want my child to be part of it, or I don't. That school doesn't just, any school that Dr. Kai, Mr. Smith, whatever he wants to identify himself with, when he goes into a school, they're very clear. He's passed all the, look, you can't get in DOE without anything happening. And as soon as you do something in DOE, you get a letter from OPI, Office of Public Investigation.
Can I tell you something about that? DOE is not the best. No, the DOE is not the best person to trust either. You know, at a high school level, back in October, a teacher was harassing students, and then he got fired. Later on, he got rehired by another name. Same, different name in another school.
That's people game in the system, right? And they got caught.
Right, because we brought it up.
Right. But you know what? I got a letter of a staff that was arrested a week ago. Now DOE saying they can't be in the building. That's how quick it comes. He has to go through clearances. They have to inform parents. It's the school's responsibility. School offers a music program now. They hire a new music person. They have to vet that. But we don't all, everybody doesn't have to be vetted. You have to have trust.
Your volume keeps on going on and off. I don't know if it's just me.
That could be. I talk about with her. So, Rosa, you can't, unless you can get to the meeting, then you either trust your members or you say, I cannot vote for this because I don't have the information I need. But what do you want? This is the thing. What questions went to Asher so that we could then propose these questions if that's what we decide to do?
So I want to see it in writing. I don't see that in the website at all.
Then just, Rosa, I think, like David said, just send me all the questions you have, and then I'll make sure it gets sent out to Mr. Smith, and I'll try to get answers. Because right now we're going in circles. And we're getting into, and we're starting to get into a little bit of hypotheticals also. So
Right. We shouldn't be saying what if and not if. If we have facts, then say the facts.
Right. That's what I want, the facts.
okay, so the way we get the facts, I'm sorry, that came off a little rude. The way that we could get the facts is if we have questions, because like I said before, this is the main thing I'm frustrated about. And it's not just with this committee, it's with the whole board. People had concerns and I said to email me all these questions that you have, and I have not heard anything from anyone. So I can't get answers unless people tell me what they want answers to.
And I think, if I may respond, I think like all this meeting and all these questions should be into some type of transcription that you'll be able to gather those questions from and maybe ask those questions.
A Google
Or do
form?
you need them
That-
in like a new email or something like that?
Is that what's being suggested, a Google form or something?
Maybe a Google form.
I think just if people, I'm saying you very generally, if people just send me an email, I could copy and paste it onto a Google Doc. It's getting a little too complicated. I'm trying to help y'all out here, and
Well,
no one's
maybe what the focus should be before we go to anybody else is what questions do we still have left that we need answers? Some people said they didn't have any. Some communicated. I think, Sage, correct me if I'm wrong, you would be welcome to go seeing and him in action doing his thing as other members. You know, what would help people make a decision either way, and not necessarily change your decision, but what would you need to see for you to help you make a better decision?
Who is that? Is that question directed to somebody?
It was initially, I kind of put it, say, because you did mention that, I just want to verify that that was something you would want to do if you had the opportunity, but it was more rhetorical to everybody.
Okay, I will say I sent an email to the chair and vice chair of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee because he was scheduled to give another presentation there. I think people had a good chance to ask a lot. Sorry, yeah, I'm gonna I didn't mean to interrupt and step out of order.
No, that's all right. And that was my fault. I kind of put you out there. So, Isaac, just give me 1 second. Say, do you want to just finish?
Yeah, I sent an email to some people, and my thing, like, I asked questions when he was here, and I felt like he just did not respond to the questions. He went on the defensive whenever a question came up. So again, I would, if we like emailed him questions, I don't know in that case if I would trust you, Asher, to deliver the questions to him, but I think I would be unsatisfied with the responses. I would want to talk to him so that he can't like sidestep questions.
I think something we could ask is if he has another event coming up. I think that's where we need to start because people are saying that they want to go, have another chance to see him in action. I think if we ask if he has another event, put that out there for people to go to. And yeah, I think that's where we need to start. Because also, I think no offense, I really don't blame him for not wanting to come back. Because even though he was aggressive, we were equally as aggressive back. So I don't know how he would respond I don't know. I'm sorry. My brain is like, I'm tired.
No, it's all right. And Isaac, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off, so please.
Nah, no worries, big brother. That's good. I would like to make a motion to support, if that's okay with you. I would like to just put the motion back on the floor, if that's all right with you. Because I think that at this point we have enough people who do support graphics, and I think that we can continue on with it. I think with respect to this conversation, and that people are going to actually do their due diligence over the, the time they need to before we vote at full board. I'm sure that that's enough. I think we
But
can let folks know about this conversation we had at full board, and if again, like Ashley just said, no one sent in questions. So I think that we can bring back up, this conversation, and exactly the same thing kind of just happened, and there's no real questions being sent, or you know what I mean. So I think it's like a lot of pressure. I understand how folks feeling like they feel like they're being pressured to vote. You don't have to. I think that was the freedom of being a board member. But it sounds like we have enough people on the call who do support this program and have advocated for them. And I think folks can, I think we should just vote on it if other people are comfortable with it. But I would like to put a motion on if it's cool with you.
uh, I just think. Sorry, David. I don't mean to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Ash. You're leading the
No,
meeting. I defer.
I think yeah, we have enough people on committee who would approve it. It's just like we said before, the problem was full board. So I
I
don't know
think
how.
I think that we can reiterate this conversation, and exactly like that nothing really of substance came out of, there was no legitimate concerns raised tonight that and it doesn't sound like folks are going to change until they have an opportunity to interrogate themselves either, or see everything he does on paper for them. And I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. So I think we can just we should move forward. Everybody doesn't support everything anyway, and I don't think we should like wait until we got the support of every single board or committee member before we vote on something. So that's just what
Yeah,
I think.
I'm sorry, I didn't phrase what I was
Now you
saying
good.
correctly. What I'm trying to think about how to word exactly what I'm thinking. It's not just the committee here, it's that people on full board had concerns. I think maybe saying that we had this conversation during full board, give them a month to like do what they want to do. Like if people want to send emails, if people want to, I'm going to put it out there again, like during full board, that look, if you need any questions or whatever, if you want me to like find out about, I'm going to find out if he has another event anyway. But I think if we just wait a month just for like the dust to settle a little bit, people to like find, because people still want to do, like you said, their own investigation. So I think if we wait, it's probably better.
And excuse me, Ezra, as I mentioned earlier, I purposely, although I'm somebody who likes to get things done, move it on along the line, and let's go, because we got so much more to do. I definitely agree, as I said earlier, I don't want us to vote tonight. I want us all, because sometimes we all have very passionate at the moment about what we feel, what we're thinking, and what we've made a decision about. I want us all to make that decision next month as we start this. I'm going to ask after we do the informational updates that this is the first order of business. And at that moment, we will spend a few minutes summing up where we've been and then take a vote. I would hope in the next month that we all take our time, due diligence again, to gather what we feel we need to make the best decision for us, for the community. And what I mean by that is, I'm not asking anybody to vote with me or with my belief. I'm asking people to vote what they feel is their conscience and belief, whether I agree or disagree. So I would not have a vote tonight. Yes, I would like to push it through, move it along, either way, so we can get to the next piece. But I think this is, I hope through this process we become a stronger committee and really have the faith to rely on each other as we look at other different entities, presentations, groups, anything that comes before us. Sage, I did see your hand up. You put it down. I don't want to not get to you if there was a.
I was just going to try and debate the motion that Pastor Scott put on the table. I agree with what you just said, David. I don't think anything has changed since
Yes.
the last. So I don't think there's a reason to put forth another motion to support at full board yet.
Yes, I agree. I want us to all just take some space from this and then come back at our June meeting and not spend an hour and a half discussing, but making either a motion to support or not to support. And we take it from that. Please, everyone, whatever it is that will help you make the decision that you feel is best, that you don't have the information, let's try to get it. And I would say, what time is it? Unless there's any burning. Russell, I saw your hand up too. It went down. Did you want to say anything?
No, I'm done.
Okay. You're always so eloquent and my passionate. So so with that said, I would adjourn the meeting. I really thank everybody for really sitting through this process, really openly expressing themselves. If I did not let anybody or feel that I did not give anybody their full chance to talk, I apologize. If there's anything burning that people feel that need to say before we adjourn, thank you all for being honest and for going through this process as a group together. I really appreciate it. Khalid, if you can call the roll call, and if Claudia.
Rosa's hand is up.
Oh, Rosa, I'm sorry.
No worries. I have a question. Like, there's a couple of people as attendees, not members. Do we also want to provide a space to hear from them if they know of graphics by any chance? I
Say
believe
that again,
there's
Rosa.
so I believe there are some attendees, not members of CB11. I wanted to see if there's a chance for them to also speak. Maybe they also know about graphics.
I would defer to Claudia as she knows people that went through the program, but I'd be careful of just putting anybody up to satisfy our need as well. Not that we don't want to hear from people, but
That's what we have a committee for.
Oh, Xavier.
Xavier, I know you jumped on late. Didn't know if we'd still be on.
Evening, all. Sorry, I've my sister-in-law's in town. We haven't seen her in some time, so we were spending time with her and the boys.
Can't be
So
here
I
every time
would,
either, Xavier.
yeah. So we often refer a full board that the public should be engaged at the committee level. So I think that's something we've constantly said very consistently for years now. If the committee's not going to have the discussion right now, then I think it would be good for those members of the public who are attending for next month to then engage, and the public should be engaged and heard at the committee level. That's where the work, and traditionally, as you remember, David, when we were in person, we would often, after the committee had talked about it, we would go to the public who were in attendance. And I think that's a very important integral part of our lean into the community and hearing from all voices. So just as an aside and something we'll discuss and remind one another at executive, So although it seems like the committee is done with the discussion for tonight, so for next month, after you guys have gone back and done the solicitation and reach out, I think for next month, if this is going to be on the agenda, just make sure the public's informed and have them come and have a robust conversation. It's healthy for discourse and for us to be well informed and fruitful in whatever policy positions we generate. So that's the only statement I'm going to make. Sorry I missed the part, but unlike my mother, I can't be all places at all times. So anyway, have a good evening.
Thank you, Xavier. So, thank you, everybody. I do want to again just announce quick, right as Khalid's doing a roll call, that we have the event with Children's Aid, Hope Leadership Academy and Lexington Academy on empowering women. I know, Angela, you reached out. Were you able to register, Angela? Are you going to come or?
I just started a new job.
Okay. So we get you on next. Look, it's a yearly thing.
Yes.
Claudia, I'm just going quick so I don't keep everybody. Claudia, if you want to come, let me know. I will send you the invitation. I'll put your name on the event. It's at the banquet on 145th Street. What is it? Grand Slam Banquet Hall. It's going to be a real wonderful event, empowering women and some performances at Children's Aid.
I'm sorry. I just want to put it out there how hard the kids worked, because I've been shuffling children back and forth the past like week and a half to work. They're working very hard on this, and I think it's going to be really good. I unfortunately might not be there, but I really do think you guys shouldn't miss it. So also I put my email in the chat for those of you who didn't have it. So
Khalid, do the roll call before we raise another hand.
You got it. Rosa Diaz.
I was laughing.
Angela Donadell.
Here.
David Giordano.
Present.
John Green.
Out.
Sage Mason.
Present.
Thank you. Claudia Perez.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Asher Rodriguez.
present.
Isaac Scott.
Good night, everyone.
Russell Schuler.
Present.
Thank you. And Jason Wu is excused. That's it, Chairs.
Have a good night, all.
All right, good night, everyone.
Buenas noches.
See you tomorrow.
Good night, everybody.